An angry boss destroying his stock of wine bottles, a woman relieving herself in a frozen food aisle, a dog saving a little boy's life, or a student showing up to class with his typewriter. Sit back and enjoy these unusual moments caught on camera. In Moscow, in a metro station, surveillance cameras recorded an unusual fact. A young man had just left his job and obviously he had had a very bad day. In order to go back home, he chose to take the metro as usual, except that when he arrived at the machines that validate the ticket, the man who was very upset and who obviously didn't have a ticket on him gave a very violent kick to the glass doors of the turnstile so that they free the passage for him. These doors did not resist to the blow and under the shock were immediately reduced to pieces. The man then crossed the passage, leaving the glass shards all over the floor, and walked away pretending he had done nothing, as if he had kicked a wooden door. This gesture, interpreted as an act of vandalism, will certainly cost him a lot of money, much more than if he had taken his ticket like everyone else, because unfortunately the security guards and the police are immediately on his heels. They try to find him by all means. In the meantime, let's hope at least that he managed to get over his nerves on this turnstile and that he could then calm down. In the garden of a private villa, a little boy and his sister were playing with a ball, under the benevolent and protective eye of their dog. At one point, the little boy failed to catch the ball and it ended up in the garden fountain. His sister went to her parents for help, while the little boy, much more daring, ventured to go and get in the deep pond. Seeing that the boy was in danger, the dog immediately got up to pull him by his clothes and dissuade him from his plan. Once he was well away from the edge of the fountain, the animal grabbed a long net, then fished out the balloon to give it to the little one. The whole thing was recorded by their backyard surveillance camera. The boy was close to falling into the pond and drowning if the dog had not had the incredible reflex to go and save him. After that, the boy will never have to worry again as long as his dog is by his side. In these images, captured by a street camera, a mason was troweling a freshly concreted surface while colleagues of his were putting concrete elsewhere. He seemed to be doing pretty well until he tried to do a tricky maneuver which caused him to lose his balance by missing a small step. The man then fell to the ground and dropped the troweling machine after losing control of it. The machine, which was still running, ended up spinning around at high speed. In the process, it knocked down another worker and almost hit a third. This incident meant that all the mason's work was ruined in no time, as all the troweled ground cover would have to be redone. Although no one was hurt, this mason had the worst day on the job in his life. This woman was shopping in a supermarket with her cart in hand. At one point, she was overcome by an urge, so much so that she couldn't hold herself back long enough to get home or even to ask where the store's bathroom was. The only idea she had was to head to the cheese and frozen food aisle, pull down her pants and make the big score, while customers passed by each aisle. Even worse, she did it while a customer's back was turned. Fortunately, the customer quickly walked away before the smell got to her. Now that I think about it, the smell of poop must have blended in. She didn't choose this place by chance. I guess she's a smart lady. But obviously not smart enough because she didn't see that just above her head was the surveillance camera, which normally was installed to monitor theft attempts. Unfortunately, everyone saw her doing her business. Well, she probably relieved herself, but I wonder if she had a clear conscience while doing this. In April 2022, a young man named Nicholas McCall was on a hot air balloon with a group of other people and the instructor who ran the balloon. They had planned to take a trip into the sky that day to see the beauty of the landscape and the California town of Paris, north of San Diego, but their trip didn't go at all as planned. While they were perched at an altitude of several hundred meters, an abnormal gust of wind caused the balloon to deviate from its trajectory and fly straight down to Earth. Fortunately, more fear than harm, because miraculously, no one was injured as a result of the accident. The young man immediately shared the video on social networks, a video that was very successful and has been shared countless times. It was the first time Nicholas McCall went up in a hot air balloon, but also the last. In the lecture hall of a university, a young student returned to class, a class he normally found very boring. But that day he had decided that the class would not be like every day, that he was going to bring a little touch of originality to it. So he managed to show up with a typewriter. Yes, we're talking about the typewriter. When it came time to write, while the other students were typing on their computer keyboards, he was typing on his machine. But he was making so much noise that he did not go unnoticed. All the other students were turning around to see where the strange noise was coming from. The scene was so hilarious that the student laughed. Many laughed at what he was doing. Was it a dare between friends? Was it to make people laugh, to be a clown, or to provoke the teacher? We don't know why he did it. All we know is that he was reprimanded for it and even expelled from class. He left the lecture hall embarrassed, but also very proud of having entertained the whole gallery. Vincent Lavigne, a wine merchant by profession, owns a huge wine cellar in Saint-Avold in the Moselle region of France. One day, realizing that the financial crisis had lasted too long and that he was only receiving visits from a few customers, Vincent Lavigne broke down and decided to go crazy. He asked someone to film him, goes to his cellar, filled with expensive bottles of wine, devises a staging and a laughing monologue, and starts to commit the irreparable. He seizes the bottles one by one and throws them brutally and with all his strength on the ground. They break and end up in 1,000 shards on the ground. An amazing scene from this boss who normally knows perfectly well the high value of these bottles of wine. He breaks the first one, then the second one, goes to look for the next one a little further, and this whole show was filmed by one of his friends. For him, since these bottles were going to remain stored for a long time and he refused to sell them at a low price, he might as well put his nerves on it. We stopped the sequence here because Vincent had the intention, in addition, to urinate on the ground in front of the camera. That's what we call a high level of pissing off. Guess who is going to have to pay the broken pots? It's Lavigne here. In any case, he doesn't really seem to realize it and will only feel the real pain once he has calmed down. Let's hope at least that this outburst made him feel better. On Egyptian television, a well-known host in the country invited two politicians on his show to debate about difficult issues. At one point, they couldn't get along and the host couldn't control or curb the electric tension on the set. The two guests then got into a live TV brawl, starting with a fight with a table. One would push it on the other and vice versa, while in the middle, our disarmed host didn't know what to do. In a state of dismay, he went back and forth to the rhythm of the table's comings and goings. It was a hilarious moment that ended up in a real fight as the table was dismantled and the two guests went to the hands and kicks. They have set the bar very high in terms of catfight. The host will surely have to justify this legendary fight and will most certainly be reprimanded for not having been able to control the guests. But when you think about it, his job was to moderate a debate, not to turn into an MMA referee. In the town of Scarborough, in the county of North Yorkshire in England, a young couple was out one evening in February 2017. The two lovebirds had planned to eat a nice pizza at Domino's. After placing their order, as usual, the couple got, how shall we say, carried away by the scorching heat emanating from the kitchens. This heat mixed with an unbearable hunger for pizza made the two people lunge into a very carnal exchange of kisses in the middle of the restaurant, right on the counter in front of the astonished eyes of the customers. Since the pizza was late in arriving, they might as well make the most of the waiting time. The exchange of kisses then turned into a very obvious sexual act. The two lovers obviously couldn't resist the temptation. But instead of hiding, Craig Smith, 31, and Daniela Hurst, 28, decided to do it in public in order to get noticed, and it seems to work. This amazing scene was filmed by the cameras of the restaurant, then posted on social networks and shared by thousands of internet users. However, their lovemaking did not last long, because the police arrived to arrest them. After being taken into custody and released until their sentencing date, the couple gave several interviews to the media, where they said that it was not the first time they did it in public and in unusual places. They have already done it in a bus, a van, a hotel, a pool, and even in a field. But here we agree they went a bit far. The couple certainly had to pay dearly for their crime. I hope at least that their pizza was good. So, what do you think of these unusual sequences? Which one did you like the most? Tell us what you think in the comments. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all the notifications and not miss anything from our next contents.